is Damian Evans. Now, the climate delegates across the world have converged in Nairobi ahead of the first African Climate Summit amid calls by the non-government actors across the continent who have challenged the accreditation and representation in the planned summit in Nairobi. The Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance have expressed deep concern and disappointment over the preparation and agenda of the summit, saying organization lapses, apparent civil society exclusion, and Western interest have dominated in the preparation of the summit. At the same time, different stakeholders led by the church have outlined their expectations ahead of the summit that will officially begin on Monday. Willie Lusige with that report.
Sunday. Nairobi was turned into a beehive of activities, all signifying the importance of the African Climate Summit 2023, the first of its kind in Africa, bringing together state leaders, organizations, and climate stakeholders across the world to chart a way forward on climate change and Africa as a continent. Nairobi hosting the biggest electric vehicle parade, including buses, motorbikes, cars, and bikes, among others. Actors across the continent challenging the accreditation and representation of the planned African Climate Summit in Nairobi. The Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance expressed deep concern and disappointment over the preparation and agenda of the summit, saying organizational lapses, apparent civil society exclusion, and Western interest have dominated in the preparation of the summit.
Summit organizers have deliberately failed to ensure adequate participation and consultation of non-state actors, especially those from the most vulnerable and marginalized communities, in planning and implementation of the summit.
The NGOs accusing the summit organizers of deliberately failing to ensure adequate participation and consultation of non-state actors, especially those from the most vulnerable and marginalized communities, in the planning and implementation of the summit.
Matters of climate change cannot be politicized, cannot be reduced to economists, cannot be commodified, cannot be objectified, and must be treated as a matter of life and death.
According to the organization, the summit has majored on promoting market-based solutions and transnational corporations' involvement, which does not address the people's and the planet's needs and rights, calling on African leaders to rethink on the agenda of the summit.
We must not use this summit to glorify and justify more investments in commercial agriculture that has put us in the problems that we are in today.
Kenyan youths allied to the operation, Linda Ugatuzi, also complained of being sidelined and being denied a chance to attend the summit.
That thousands of interested young people who applied as delegates for the Africa Climate Summit expressed profound disappointment and frustrations they have met in the hands of the Ministry of Environment committee in charge of the entire event planning. On Monday morning, we will do or have a Solomonic peaceful pilgrimage to the KICC so that we have ourselves present in that particular meeting.
Interreligious leaders converged in Kiambu County at Deliverance Church International in Ruiru and expressed their deep concern about the crisis caused by the climate change on the continent and the adverse effect on communities.
We know the developed world has really contributed much in the pollution of the air and the environment, and so therefore let's not narrow on what the small person is doing, in as much as we would want everybody to commit to securing our environment and our earth. Let's also look at who is contributing much.
Thus, we call for the rejection of the promotion of carbon market that are not responsible and not serve the climate justice imperatives for Africa.
Majority of the participants have already arrived here in Nairobi ahead of the African Summit 2023, which will begin on Monday and continue up to 6th of September. Already stakeholders, some of them being non-governmental organizations, are complaining that this summit might end up being a way to collect money from the West, but not to put in place rules and measures to govern the continent against pollution, especially from the West, that has been the biggest contributor of the climate change felt in African continent. Willie Lusige, KTN News, Nairobi at the KICC.
Now, Africa must